O glorious, precious root Lama, above my head on a lotus moon seat, you care for me with great kindness. Please bestow the siddhis of body, speech, and mind. Great Vajradhara Tilunaro Marpamila Dharma Lord Gampopa, knower of the 3 times, omniscient Karmapa, holders of the 4 elder and 8 younger lineages, Drikanchaklung and the Salpa, glorious Drukpa, and so forth, masters of the profound path of Mahamudra, to the dark po instruction lineage, the peerless protectors of wanderers. Kajulamas, I supplicate you, I uphold your lineage. Grant the blessings of your liberating lives. Just as revulsion is taught to be the legs of meditation, this meditator clings not to food and riches, and has severed the ties to worldly life. Grant your blessings for detachment from honor and gain. Just as devotion is taught to be the head of meditation, this meditator constantly prays to the Lama, who opens the vault of pith instructions. Grant your blessings for uncontrived devotion to wealth force. Just as non-distraction is taught to be the body of meditation, this meditator simply remains without altering the fresh essence of whatever thought arises. Grant your blessings for parting from the concept of meditation. Just as thought is taught to be in essence Dharmakaya, for this meditator unhindered manifestation dawns. Nothing whatsoever dawning as whatever may appear. Grant your blessings to realize inseparable samsara nirvana. May I never in future lives part from authentic lamas, and embracing ever the glory of Dharma. May I perfect the qualities of the levels and paths, and thus swiftly attain the state of Vajradhara. So we're going to be looking at various teachings from this book, Storing the Balance, and there's a beautiful picture of Akong RInpoche on the front, which I was present at when it got taken. It's just taken on the back of Sami Ling, and it's one of my favourite pictures of him. So it's nice that it was used for that, for restoring the balance. And happily we can open that without it falling to pieces. So, you know, this is the first part of the second lot of teachings of Akong RInpoche. As I mentioned earlier, the first ones were based on his teachings that were compiled in the book Limitless Compassion, and this one is compiled in his teachings in Restoring the Balance. So that's what it's predominantly. That's the sort of overarching title. So the whole series of these teachings is under the sort of umbrella of living the legacy, because it's the teachings of Akong Rinpoche that are his legacy. Well, there's many parts of his legacy, but a major part. But it's not enough just to sort of skim through it. The point is to use the teachings, the Buddhist teachings. And in the case of Rinpoche, I think one of the unique aspects of his teachings is that he was a young man when he came to this country. He was only in his early 20s when he had to leave Tibet because of the invasion. And so he spent a lot of time here, possibly more time than he did in Tibet. I mean, he went back to Tibet and he, did charitable work there and had many projects. But he spent a lot of time in the West, and so he became very, very conversant with Western people and their problems, everything about them. So I feel that he's almost uniquely placed to be able to help us. And he speaks in a very, very simple, plain language, and I think sometimes we mistake that for being, maybe it's not so profound there, and he doesn't use big words, but simplicity is clarity. It's when people do use a lot of big words, it's often to obfuscate the meaning rather than explain it. But this came very naturally to Rinpoche because he didn't have brilliant English. He wasn't particularly scholarly in terms of his academic learning, or certainly not, about language, but he could communicate very, very well. But I just felt I need to mention that because it is simple language, and I do sometimes feel it just goes over people's heads because he uses everyday speech. You don't need to know lots of Buddhist terms, for example.
So it's because of Akong Rinpoche that we're here in this centre, because we are a branch of Samyeling, which was the first Tibetan Buddhist centre in the West, and it was Akong Rinpoche and Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche who started that, and so we are the sort of city centre branch, one of them. There's many around the world, and it's all through these two young lamas. Him particularly because the other lama went to America and carried on the work there. So Akong Rinpoche is also my root guru. I use the present tense really when I talk about him because although he died 12 years ago, his body is dead, gone, but his teachings and his mind is still very much with us. And so, having worked closely with Rinpoche for many years, I had good fortune to receive many of his teachings, and not only in a sort of formal setting, like in a temple way, sitting down with other people, but just the way he lived his life, because actions do speak louder than words. And Rinpoche's actions, this young refugee that escaped, the armies of Mao Zedong and came to, I'm not going to go through the entire story, but he came to Scotland, and his reach has been literally global. And he has, and he hasn't sort of been empire building. It's just that people have been so inspired by him that they have wanted to start their own centres and asked his advice. And so that's how these centres have sort of sprung up like lots of flowers planted all over the place. And so through that, I feel that I'm inspired to share this legacy with you, not just in words, but hopefully to put them into action, as he did, for the benefit of others and for ourselves and for our world. So, restoring the balance. Now, this book is available. We have some copies here, and you can also get it through Samyeling. Pretty sure we've got some copies here as well. So I would urge that you get it because then you can read it whenever you want. But this is what we're going to be going through. And it's more like a study course. I'm going to read out sections of it for you to kind of think about. And we'll just proceed like that. Okay, so So this particular section that we're going to be looking at is in Restoring the Balance is subtitled, Are We Genuinely Ourselves? Which is kind of another way of saying, do we even know who we are? So if we look around at the world we're in today, we can see that things are quite out of whack in many instances, just looking around outside. We look at the environment, the weather, wildlife, look at the earth, the oceans, the rivers, people, and ourselves. And we can see that things are not in the best states right now. And as we are human, the human race, we live increasingly complex lives, largely divorced from nature. It seems like we've lost touch. By the way, what I'm saying is my words, not Rinpoche's. I'm just introducing the reasons why we're looking at this. We have lost touch with nature to a great degree, and also with our own true nature. So the world outside and our inner landscape, we've kind of lost touch with. And therefore our minds have become somewhat unstable, unbalanced, to, obviously more or less with different beings. But as humans, we are the prime primates, aren't we? We're the top of the sort of the tree. And we have the most agency to affect our world, more than any other, really, I think that's safe to say. So it too becomes unbalanced, because if we're not balanced, then whatever our actions are will also not be very well balanced, not clear. And then there will be repercussions. And that will have an effect on our environment. Everything. I mean, this is very easy to observe, isn't it? You think of all the wars that are going on, you think of the destruction of nature. It's I don't need to tell you the list it. But in order to put things right, we first have to address the imbalance in ourselves. Because until that's restored, any of our actions will not be coming from a clear place. And so just continue the mayhem, as it were. So we first have to address the imbalance in ourselves, and so that it can be restored for our own well-being, of course, but ultimately for the benefit of others and for the planet that we all live on. So I don't think it's selfish to start with ourselves. I think it's imperative that we start with ourselves, because it's through being out of whack that we've had a negative effects. Not only, I'm not saying that we've not had any positive effects, but we don't need to be working on those because they're fine. But whatever we've done negatively, unmeaningly, we don't set out to be negative or sort of have bad repercussions, but because of not being in a balanced state, this is what happens. So let's see what Rinpoche has to say about how to be ourselves, how to be yourself, how to be genuinely yourself. And he calls it a challenge. He says this is a challenge. It's facing the challenge of who we really are and all that we could be. So, he says, from the moment we're born until we die, we train how not to be ourselves. We go to school, we are educated, we are influenced by society. All the time, every day of our life, we practice how not to be ourselves and how to be someone else. We're fed this sort of expectations that we should be like this, we shouldn't do that, we should, we always have some aim in sight. So we kind of lose the sort of natural openness of who we truly are, because we're so wanting to be something. And it's not that people are trying to trip us up or anything, it's just that everybody is suffering from the same thing. So we're looking in the wrong way. So sometimes we almost experience our own emotions, our own feelings, but we have learned to be someone else. We've got this other persona that we think we should be. And so we somehow can't allow ourselves that real experience of which was coming from a more real place. So then we start to live as a sort of constant contradiction. There's a sort of fight going on between who we really are, our natural selves, and this one that we're aiming to be, that we think we ought to be, that's been drummed into us that we should be. And so our own experience and ourselves as we have to be is in constant contradiction to this expectation. And due to this conditioning, we find in our life so much that is contradictory. Our own experience and our own emotions may build contradictions that are so strong we're not able to deal with them. We don't know what to do because there's a big gap between who we truly are and what our expectation is. So we find more problems. In fact, we ourselves become a problem. You don't have to accept any of this. You should really think about this and see how it applies to you. So we try to deal with these contradictions at an artificial or superficial level, and we discover we are not dealing as we want to be dealing. We can't, because we are no longer true to ourselves. So our lives become out of balance. If you think about how you were as a child, when you were very open and natural and would just say whatever you thought or whatever you felt, that would come out very naturally. But we don't operate like that anymore. Because we're always trying for this kind of... It becomes so ingrained that we don't know we're doing it. We don't know we're doing it. We don't say, right, I'm going to be doing that. It's become trained into us. And so that becomes almost like our natural response to things. But it actually isn't who we genuinely are. So our lives become out of balance. So what does it mean, this balancing? How to be yourself and how genuinely to become yourself? What does it even mean? Our talk is artificial talk because we have already sorted out what we have to say. We think about what we have to say, what will sound good, what we want to put across. It's not really spontaneously coming out. And also we said what we shouldn't say and what we should be allowed to say and what is acceptable to others. There's a lot of sort of restrictions that, of course, we live with other people. We don't want to speak harshly. We need to watch our words. Of course, it's not saying that you should just blurt out any old stuff. But we need to know what's going on, and it needs to be a choice, not an unthinking response to what is happening. That way, well, look at social media if you want to know what that looks like. And of course, we must, we have to reject as inaccessible things that would not be wise or not be. So, but everything we say and everything we do is no longer what is genuinely happening to us. So we have constant problems caused by this inner contradiction of being out of touch with ourselves. And then he does actually talk about children here. So, or he mentions a particular incident. So children are less conditioned by the ways of society. They're not yet programmed, and maybe programmed not to pee in the bed, but, there's still pretty much what you see is what you get. A child is a real person who tells the truth. I mean, if you think back to how you were, sometimes it gets you into trouble, doesn't it? When I was a kid, I remember things like, I remember one mad incident. I was with my mum, who was an angelic person, really lovely person. But my dad's sisters were there was one of them coming round to our house, and my mum didn't want to be in for her. I didn't understand any of this. We just hid in case she looked through the window, because I said, "What are we doing?" I must have been about 3, so very, very open, And she said, "We just hide." I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, Auntie Faye's coming round." I said, "Well, so what?" So she's really moody. He just said that to me. I don't think I even knew what the word moody meant. We'd never done that before. We never did it since it was not a thing that we often did. But it has stuck in my mind, because then when I did see Auntie Faye, maybe a week later, I just said, "Oh, my mummy says you're moody." Not knowing what the word moody went. You can imagine how that went down. So that's the artlessness, the complete truthfulness of a child, isn't it? I think that's a fairly telling example. So obviously, you have to not just sort of blurt us about, but to remember who that child was, that's like, says it like it is, tells it like it is. We talk about telling it like it is, but we very often don't, because we've usually got an agenda, haven't we? We want a certain effect. We're trying to get something we want, or have a certain type of communication. It's very kind of engineered. Not often is it just an honest response, like my mum said you're moody. So, anyway, so Rinpoche talks about this. An example, he recently took a friend to London to sightsee and to see the changing of the guard. And the horses, there they are in Horse Guards Parade, all well trained. But the only things humans are not able to train is when the horses have a poo or have a wee. So even though these are perfectly trained horses, that's outside the training, that's up to them. So while they were changing guard, some children next to us started laughing because one horse did a poo. And their father said, "Oh, that horse needs to be trained," as if you could train it not to have a poo or have a pee. And so Rinpoche said he was fascinated by all of this concern for the horses' need to be clean, to be trained, so, to be so unnatural. And we are not natural, and we've trained that all out of our natural responses to things. So we humans, we always want things trained. We don't want anything natural. Natural is like something we're not able to face. It's become hard for us, something to be hidden, especially in the West, We want to wrap ourselves up and not only the physical, but all our delusions, all our negativities in the best silk material, the best and softest possible wrapping. So, we literally do, don't we? We wrap ourselves up in designer clothing. We want to present a certain image to the world. We want people have logos of expensive things because it makes them feel more prestigious or something, So it's all about the surface, isn't it? I mean, we spend a fortune, and not just clothes wrapping, but actually our bodies, our faces. Thousands and thousands of pounds people spend to have their wrinkles removed or whatever it is, It's all about the superficial. Nothing to do with who we truly are. So we have that because we're not secure in ourselves. We think we're not good enough in some way. And we're told to think that. This is now me saying it, but I'm just riffing on the the theme, because it's got even more so since Rinpoche died. You know, there's plastic surgery everywhere, even in really young people. So we dress ourselves up and have this image that we want to project to the world, and that's also about how we speak and how we receive things and how we're taken in by things, because everybody's doing the same thing and most people are doing it for the reason that they want to make some money, or a lot of it is to do with that. And so you will be conditioned to think you are not good enough. You're not good enough because you don't wear the right shoes, or you don't have the right perfume, or you don't, so you need to buy this and this and this. And that's capitalism, isn't it? It's how the world seems to work these days. So we are encouraged to be insecure, actually, because if we are secure, we don't need all of that stuff. And so because of this, our freedom is lost. We become slaves to a life of wrappings and pretense. And, with the advent of AI, that's only going to proliferate even more. Because now we're handing over our minds to be not to a servant, but to the one who's going to become the master. That's how naive we are. We think we know it all. Happiness depends breaking free from this conditioning, because it is to do with conditioning. We're conditioned to this is how things are. Well, it ain't necessarily so. We don't have to continue like this. That's why we need to wake up. So some of these things that Rinpoche says are a little bit uncomfortable, aren't they? Because that's who we'd become to be. But that's not who we truly are. We look for freedom in the wrong place. This is another subheading. So we begin by recognizing that all beings want the freedom to be who they are, and that nobody wants to suffer. Nobody wants to suffer, do they? Nobody says, oh yeah, please, can I suffer? Nobody wants to suffer. Everyone wants to be free. Everyone wants to be happy. Not only humans, all living beings, they want to be free, they want to not suffer. So the simple question might arise, well, why aren't we? Why aren't we free? Why don't we feel free? So this question is part of the challenge. Perhaps we're simply looking in the wrong place for our happiness and freedom. Because, the people that are trying to sell us stuff will say, oh, you buy this and you're going to be happy. That will make you happy. And there might be a few days of sort of, oh, now I've got a new mug, I've got a new car, I've got a new pair of sneakers, or whatever it is. But with that sort of momentary bit of solace or so-called happiness, that doesn't last, does it? None of it lasts. It's not lasting happiness. It's just the answer to a want, not a need. It's usually a want. And then that wears off, or you lose it, or it gets damaged, or whatever. Or if it's a person, that's also impermanent. Everything's impermanent. So it doesn't have any lasting effect. And that's how it's also built in like that, because then you wouldn't buy any more of them if you didn't. So it has built-in obsolescence, a lot of the stuff that we're sold. So Rinpoche gives this example. The great Tibetan yogi Milarepa, who's the statue on the left. He said, turn your mind inward and you will find your way. You'll find your way to freedom. You turn your mind, because all the time we're looking outward. We need this, we need that. You have to go there, you have to do this, you have to do that. It's always focusing outwardly. the Rapper says, turn your mind inward. Look what's going on in your mind. That you can do something about. And you'll find your way. But the problem is we're accustomed to looking outside for our happiness and freedoms. You think the more money you have, the free you can be, you can go wherever you want, you can get a plane, you can get a private plane, you can get a yacht, all of these things. Well, actually, when you think about it, they just tie you down to more stuff to do. And that's why, there are instances of multimillionaires jumping off their yachts or being pushed off their yachts or whatever, not happy just because they've acquired a lot of stuff and tied down by more and more stuff. If we feel unhappy, we blame the weather or the way other people treat us or some circumstance that's happened. And when we don't feel free, we attribute this to our society, to our family or other factors. They're stopping us from doing this or that. So many people turn to conventional ways to overcome their unhappiness, but they find that none of them seem to work. Or at least not for very long. And when you think about, the things that people turn to, obviously there's some obviously negative ones, that like drugs or, alcohol, but people do turn to them because it gives them some release for a little while, or some oblivion probably, but then not for very long, and then it gets worse, and then you've got another problem on top of the ones that you already had. So whatever the circumstances, they may all leave us with the feeling of something lacking, something missing. Or we might go to live in a community, go and live in Samyeling, go and live in a monastery somewhere. Only to find that not the community or the place itself can offer us peace, happiness and fulfillment. If you go to the best monastery or best place in the world, but if you're not looking within your mind, you may as well be, you can be anywhere. Because that's not really going to change anything. You might have a few, nice surroundings, and that would be pleasant for a bit, but it's not going to help you find your freedom, because that is something you can only find inwardly. So happiness cannot be found in distraction and entertainment, because their solace is only temporary. That's not saying they're not pleasant for a little while, and there's no, not saying you shouldn't experience that, but don't place your hopes for happiness in them. That kind of expectation is just going to lead to disappointment. But by all means, enjoy what's beautiful and wonderful about the world. It's not saying you shouldn't do that. Please don't take that from this. But, or with relationships, it's not saying you shouldn't have relationships. But don't expect that person to provide all your happiness. That's asking for something that is not possible. So, there's this thing, it was called a song called, you take the weather with you, isn't it? You take the weather with you. You take the way you are, your inner being with you. Wherever you are, you can be in this beautiful place. But if you're in a depressed state of mind, you could be anywhere. Because we experience life through our mind, through our inner state. Underneath all the pretense and the wrappings and this and that and the other, we're stuck with who we are. So the sooner we get to that, that's where we've got a chance of changing things, of bringing some balance to our lives. But first we have to recognize the need to do that. So this is how we look for happiness and freedom in the wrong places outside, just by changing partners, changing our careers, changing different things. And so we continue to suffer and to fail. We are looking for enjoyment, for an ideal world, where nothing unpleasant ever happens, where nobody grows old or dies. I mean, obviously we know that somewhere, but we react as if we don't know that. We act as if we're going to live forever. And we wear ourselves out trying to fulfill these impossible aims, running after them, you know. Want so much. We're taught to want so much. And it's impossible. So we indulge in short-term remedies and try to find pleasure, but all the time we're growing older and no closer to our goal of finding freedom and happiness. So yes, we might look towards the spiritual life and go to a spiritual place, but the place cannot give us peace. The place cannot give us happiness. Peace has nothing to do with a physical environment, place. It has to do with our mind, how to accept our mind, not deny our mind, not look. we don't look. We don't even want to look. It's like as if you have this house which is really sort of a bit of a mess, but you just bought some new curtains in, or just put the new curtains up or something, but you don't see that all the nooks and crannies are still dusty and mucky and all the windows are dirty or whatever. So you're sort of dressing it up, but not dealing with the actual problem. So of course it's not going to really work. It's only on a very superficial level, and it'll be impermanent. So it's not to do with the physical place. It has to do with our mind, how to accept our mind and how to train our mind. We have, first of all, have to accept our mind as it is and how to train it. Going from one place to another and not finding what we're looking for could make us feel worse and even cause us to panic. So when we change our outward circumstances, such as places or careers or partners, the effects are temporary at best. And soon dissatisfaction kicks in again. Because everything is impermanent. So we need to accept that everything is impermanent. But we're not always comfortable with that. Even when things are going well for us, there's an element of suffering in that because it's sure to change. So things might be quite good for us at the moment, but it's sure to change. Things change for the better or for the worse. We put the judgment on whether it's better or worse. It's not that things just change. We put that definition on it. If we like it, then it's oh, that's great then. And if we don't like it, then it's bad. You know, then we don't want it. We want what we like. We don't want what we don't like. It's not that they are by nature good or bad. Those are our judgments that we put on. We want this, we spend our time running to that. We don't want that, we spend our time running away from that. We use so much energy doing that. The thing is that everything changes anyway, so whether we like it or not, whether we like what's happening or not, it will change. Life is flow, isn't it? It's nothing static. Impermanence is everywhere. So as long as we're looking for happiness in external things, we're setting ourselves up for disappointment because all things are subject to impermanence. It's not saying we shouldn't enjoy them, but we should enjoy them with a realistic view that they're not going to last forever. So enjoy it while it's there. It's fine. You know, I noticed some of you are taking notes, and that's fine if you want to. But also, if you have anything that you want to question, you should question yourself. But if you want to question me at the end, that's fine as well. But you might need to write them down, otherwise you might forget what you wanted to ask. It's not. I'm just saying that as a possibility. So all things change. So we may feel satisfied with things as they are right now. We may have a good job. We may have kind friends and a supportive family. But everything is subject to change. We could lose our job, fall out with friends and family. I mean, are your friends now the same ones you had before? Sometimes someone's a friend and they can become an enemy, or vice versa. So our expectations could be met with disappointment, and we can end up sad and confused because we're putting all our eggs into this basket of this relationship or that job or whatever it is, expecting so much from it, and it doesn't work out the way we thought it or wanted it to. And so then we become, disappointed and sad. As long as we look for happiness in external things, there are bound to be problems, because that's not where you find happiness. And this is because external things are impermanent, unsatisfactory, and beyond our control. What isn't beyond our control is our mind. It might be out of control right now, but it's not beyond our control. It's just that we haven't really controlled it properly or trained it properly. So once again, the solution is to look in the right place for happiness and freedom by looking within. And looking within means being very honest with ourselves. We have to see, what's going on here, what isn't working, what needs to be changed, what needs to be developed. And this means facing the challenge of who we really are and all that we could be, without constantly running away from ourselves or blaming the world outside. And the good news is that who we can really be is way more than we give ourselves credit for. We underestimate ourselves, and the way society is set up exacerbates that, because when you're not feeling enough, you have to try and make it up by buying more stuff or doing more things that are actually not necessary and will never bring you happiness. But if you discover your true nature of who you truly are and your true potential, then that's bringing freedom. You're not relying on somebody to sell you something or whatever it is. Sometimes we feel that the outside world is causing our suffering and therefore needs to change, and that our happiness depends on those changes. The fallacy of this attitude is expressed in a Buddhist saying, rather than trying to cover the world with leather, it's much easier to cover the soles of your feet. You don't have to cover the entire world with leather in order to be more comfortable. You just put leather on your feet and then you can walk in comfort. But no, we are looking outwardly. We want to change everything out there, not thinking that actually the change is what we need to make in ourselves. And then it's not saying that everything that you then encounter is going to be wonderful. It isn't, but you will be much more quick to deal with whatever it is. If it's not so pleasant, you will suffer less, much less. If it is pleasant, you can enjoy it, but without unrealistic expectations, and therefore the ensuing disappointment when it doesn't last forever. In other words, you're being realistic about how things truly are. So we begin with the realization that we can't change the world, but we can change our own mind and our own attitude. And if we do this, we begin to perceive the world in a more mature, a more understanding way. And this brings us closer to ourselves, wherever we are. In a monastery, in the jungle, it doesn't matter where we are. To change outside circumstances to fit in with our expectations is impossible anyway. As impossible as trying to cover the world with leather. So instead of wearing ourselves out, trying to find this ideal world that doesn't exist, it's better to train our mind to accept things as they are. Deal with things as they are, not how you want them to be. Then we may discover that the solutions to our problems have been within us all the time. How we look at things, how we see things. Acceptance isn't, it doesn't mean to say that if somebody does something terrible to you or whatever, or to others, that you just accept, oh, that's fine then. It doesn't mean that. But looking at how things are, why it is like that, that's accept. You have to have some sort of acceptance. You don't go straight into fight mode. It's just going to proliferate stuff. Acceptance is not easy. Because we're trained always not to accept. To want. Always to want. And then there's never any satisfaction. The Rolling Stones are right. You can't get any satisfaction that way. Then we may discover that the solutions to our problems have been within us all the time. And when we learn to face ourselves, we create the conditions for inner stability because we're being real with ourselves. We're not, because otherwise we're sort of wearing this mask even for ourselves. It's become so habitual that we think that's who we are, and that's not who we are. So we have to be really honest with ourselves and look, okay, so what's going on here? When we learn to face ourselves, we create the conditions for inner stability because we're starting from a proper foundation, a real foundation, a realistic foundation. We become capable of accepting whatever happens to us. We can't control everything about whatever happens to us, but we can become accepting of whatever happens to us. And profound inner growth begins. And we find out who we really are and all that we could be. With this unfolding comes a tremendous improvement in the quality of life. And we may go on to live happy and useful lives. But first we have to accept ourselves and know who we truly are. I mean, Buddhism teaches us that we have the same potential as the Buddha. Now, it's not saying that just to make you feel good. It's saying that to make it so that you understand that that's your potential. You are not. You haven't realized it is, but you have that potential. But even the Buddha took many lifetimes to become. What does the word Buddha mean? Do we know what the word Buddha means? Anyone? Awakened. Awakened from this unrealistic view of who you are and how things are. It's like being half asleep. So when you awaken to how things truly are, and when that is truly fully blossomed, that's Buddhahood. And it's not easy. Even the Buddha took many, many lifetimes to become Buddha. But the alternative is pretty crap, to be honest. What you're going to do, just constantly be confused. So it's not easy. But bit by bit, you start to unfold. and things do get easier. Once you accept that's what who you are, warts and all, because the warts aren't part of your Buddha nature. They are the warts, if you like, the afflictions, we call them, is part of the ignorance, is part of the misunderstanding. But your true nature is your Buddha nature, the potential to be the same as the Buddha. You don't have to be called the Buddha, or there wasn't a thing called the Buddha. All right, just to be awake. You could do with some of that. Anyway, so with this unfolding comes just with the improvements. It's already, you see that good results. It's not, you're not there by any means yet, but things start to feel better because they feel more real, you have more freedom because you're being who you are. You're starting to be on the road of who you truly are. And that's a relief. You're not having to carry around this persona, the burden of this persona that isn't really, it was just this conditioning. And so now we get to this inner potential. So this challenge is to face ourselves as we could be. We're looking inwards to embark on a journey of self-discovery to realize our true potential. Under all these fabricated layers of conditioning, it's like the jewel of our true nature of wisdom, compassion, joy, all the good qualities. Love, all, not fear and delusion and wanting and kind of feeling you're not enough and you've got to have other things. You've got everything you need, but you need to uncover it. So the challenge is to face ourselves and embark on a journey of self-discovery and personal growth to realize and develop our latent potential. So what is this potential, this jewel inside? Expressed very simply, it is limitless wisdom, compassion, and joy. And limitless means limitless, no boundary. And sometimes this is called Buddha nature, or universal basic goodness. This phrase refers to how we all are, in essence, good and innately pure. That's our natural state of being, our true state of being. Completely the opposite to the idea of original sin, by the way. Original purity. At other times it's referred to as the awakened nature. The sense of being awakened from the sleep of confusion and ignorance. Because that's where all our negative stuff comes from, a state of confusion and ignorance. We don't know what we're doing. Jesus said it, forgive them, they know not what they do. Our true nature, wisdom and compassion, is there all the time. It's often covered up, and it's not always accessible. It's like the sun shining in the sky. If it's obscured by clouds of confusion or whatever, it's no longer visible, but that doesn't mean to say it's not there. It's still there. So this true nature is the potential all beings have, not only human beings, all beings have to develop limitless compassion and limitless wisdom. Another way of putting it is that we all share that true nature. It's not that some have it and some don't have it. We all share that, whether we know it or not. And this true nature has the unchanging quality. It's like pure gold, gold stays as gold. And it's within our friends and our enemies alike. But it has, through our ignorance and confusion, been obscured by layers and layers of false concepts and thought patterns and negative emotions. From a Buddhist perspective, once freed from all these obstacles, all will reach the same level of purity. There is no being that won't. When those obscurations have been cleared away, they had no lasting reality, then the true nature is revealed. And what's important is, in each of us, whether a friend or lover, enemy or fellow worker, the essence is the same. It's important we don't try to see each person, including ourselves, in a superficial way, but try to see the true nature, the essence in everyone. This is really a good lesson, an important thing to try. Because on an individual level, if we don't do that, we're constantly battling with people, arguing with put that on a global level, there are wars. That's the same lack of understanding of ignorance, So, if a person behaves aggressively or irresponsibly, it's helpful to see that such behaviour is a result of that person's confusion and ignorance. They don't necessarily set out to, right, I'm going to be really horrible today, I think, even people like Hitler probably thought he was doing the right thing. That's how deluded and ignorant he was. People are convinced that they're doing the right thing, and then they do some terrible stuff. But it's the confusion that causes the problem because their true nature is pure. So this is a very practical way to develop both our self-respect and respect for others, remembering that the essence in all beings is pure, but through conditioning or ignorance, their behavior and ways of thinking can be unskillful or extremely negative. So we understand that our true nature is temporarily obscured. We're not aware of it. We don't even know it's happening. We find instead that there are areas of our experience or perceptions of them that at the moment are naive, which don't know, and unwholesome. What we do is unwholesome, and we need to change. But change begins within. We're not trying to change the entire world. We're trying to let go of what's negative in ourselves, of what's useless or mistaken in ourselves. And to realize our potential, we learn to free our minds from negative tendencies and to develop what is wholesome. When we lack inner balance, the potential for negativity is greater because we're off kilter. So the process of change begins with restoring the balance. That's the start of the journey. So that's the work that we need to do. If we want to change how things are and to realize our true nature, then we need to looking within ourselves, not outside all the time. That's one of the main reasons why we meditate. And then he's got this last subtitles. It's not instant coffee. No, I mean, it all sounds wonderful, this, doesn't it? It sounds like, great, well, I'm Buddha, I'm nearly Buddha. I can just do a bit of tidying up inside, rebalancing, and then I'll be Buddha, same like Buddha. But it isn't as quick as that, but it is, at least if you're taking steps in the right direction, then you start to feel the results straight away. Straight away you start to feel incrementally. And because you're going in the right direction. That doesn't mean to say no unpleasant things ever happen to you, but you'll be in a better state to deal with them. I mean, it does sound great. It sounds amazing. So, but we can't have this attitude of, that sounds great, we want it, and we want it now. Because that's how we've trained to love. We want it now. I ordered it on such an Amazon. Where is it? Where's my enlightenment? They said they'd deliver it today, But it isn't instant delivery. It isn't instant coffee. Self-discovery is not a short trip. We need to be in it for the long haul. patience and determination are needed to overcome lifetimes of habitual tendencies and conditioning. If you have the Buddhist way of thinking, then you understand about countless lifetimes. So it's not just this lifetime that you've been conditioned. It's thousands and thousands of lifetimes. So to undo or to see through that is not an instant fix. But you have to start somewhere. And that's with acceptance. Many people want to lead better lives, but they have extreme ways of going about it. They attend Oriental martial arts, meditation courses, alternative therapies. They give their new obsession 24 hours a day because they want quick results. The next day, they practice only 23 hours. And then after 24 days, their practice is dwindled to nothing. And they don't achieve anything. If we wish to live an extreme life and attain something, then maybe we can, but we will need enormous patience. It is more realistic to have a balanced way of life, so we don't make big mistakes. We will still make mistakes, but they won't be as topsy-turvy. When we want to develop our mind and realize our potential, we have to start slowly at first. You can't be too extreme. And this is much better than trying too hard at the beginning. There's a Tibetan proverb, hasten slowly and you will arrive soon. It's like the tortoise and the hare bit, isn't it? So before we go any further, it would be useful to ask where we're coming from and where we're going. By the time we embark on a spiritual journey, we have already accumulated lots of conditioning. Some of it's useful, but a lot of it tends to make us unhappy. We want to be free and happy, but through conditioning we become the slaves of habit. And to overcome lifetimes of habitual conditioning is not easy. We're unconsciously following patterns of ignorance, desire, hatred. We are caught up in a world of desire and frustration and make the same mistakes again and again and again. These are like the clouds that cover the sun. Patterns that will dominate our minds until we do something about them. So finding answers to our problems is not like making an instant coffee. We need to be patient and without expectations. Expectations are really not a good thing to have because you always end up getting disappointed. We need to revolutionize our way of thinking because the ways we've tried to achieve satisfaction in external terms have led to feelings of incompleteness, dissatisfaction. It's not working. So we need to work on our fundamental discontent. So many of the superficial ways of securing happiness are expensive, limited, time-consuming. It's what you buy them or whatever, And they're not fruitful. They let us down and they don't bring any lasting happiness. Even if we feel at ease now, there is value in transforming ourselves within so that we can remain free from suffering and confusion for as long as possible. Facing ourselves and accepting our emotions is not easy. But if we can stop resisting the truth that life involves suffering, we can accept reality. Life definitely involves suffering. It involves being sick at times. It involves old age. It involves death and impermanence. For sure. So when we accept this, it frees us to become happier. We're not fighting it all the time. We become happier and more useful to other people and to ourselves. And if we aren't able to do this, we deprive ourselves of our chance to fulfill our potential. We're limiting ourselves. We're being lesser than who we truly can be because we're barking up the wrong tree. And so when if we aren't able to do this, we deprive ourselves of our chance to fulfill our potential and to be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. That is what the whole reason why the Buddha, who was born a prince, left the temple, because he saw suffering everywhere and he wanted to know if we could get to the bottom of it. Is it necessary? Do we have to go through all this? That's what was his urge to set off on his journey of self-discovery. He's the perfect example. That's what he did it for. He is the perfect example in that way. But there's many others who have done it since then. Once we realize this, we're in a position to begin improving our lives by restoring balance. It lies within our power to do this because we are the ones who created the imbalance in the first place. So if you can create the imbalance, you can create or get back to the balance. Through our excessive activity and desire to have more and more, that's what's brought about the imbalance. We've brought stress and suffering into our lives. Each one of us can begin the process of improvement by doing these things. And he's got 3 things that you could do. Reviewing our lives, looking honestly at our lives to see how can we simplify them. Simplicity. I have to say that simple doesn't mean the same as easy. I think sometimes they get complex, they're not the same thing. Because we're so accustomed to complications and difficult, sort of making everything really complicated. So simplicity seems strange to us. Review your life. You see, how can you simplify your life? So that's one. The second one is beginning some form of simple activity like meditation. That will bring a little peace and relaxation into our mind, for starters. So you're coming from a more calm center. And then the third thing is to beginning to develop a realistic worldview by appreciating that nothing lasts. Impermanence. Everything is impermanent and changing. So we're asking for trouble if we imagine our sandcastles are real and long-lasting. Whatever house you've got, whatever career you've got, it's fine. But if you think it's going to last forever, you're on a trajectory for disappointment. And then that means suffering. But if you don't have such unrealistic expectations, then fine, you just enjoy them. And when things change, you're not so completely knocked off balance, because you know that that's how the world is, how things are, subject to change. Right, well, that's that particular chapter. I think let's just sit with it for a little while. A lot of words. And just have a few moments of letting things sink in. So first of all, get yourselves into a good posture. You need to wake up, and that includes opening your eyes and leaving them open, because otherwise you will get drowsy and dull. And we don't want to get dull. We want to relax, but we don't want to be dull. We want to be alert. We want to be clear. We want to, everything that's been said by Rinpoche is very, very meaningful. And some of it will be, hard to get our heads around, but don't have to think about everything all at once. Just sit first and relax, but relax in an alert frame of mind, not in a drowsy frame of mind. So I would suggest that you keep your eyes a little bit open, because once you close your eyes, its tendency is to get drowsy. So just rest the eyes, looking down. You're not really looking at anything in particular. You might want to take your glasses off if you wear glasses, because then you're less likely to, well, you won't need them, because you're looking at your mind, not at anything outside. So first of all, just relax body and mind. Together. bring your mind home, so your body and mind feel together here and now. Tune into your body and mind, let everything relax while maintaining awareness, but without any kind of expectation or contrivance, just resting naturally, without expectation. Allowing the mind to settle. When you breathe fully, you find that the mind also starts to settle down. So breathing fully into your lungs, your diaphragm, your belly, fully in and fully out. So you can just focus on that for a few minutes just to help your mind settle. It's as if it's riding on your breath. Everything slows down, goes deeper. So just let all the thoughts and whatever you've been thinking about while we've been looking at these teachings of Rinpoche's, just let it all settle. Straighten up your posture, straighten up your back. Imagine the top of your head growing upwards like the crown of a tree growing up to the light. When you have a good posture, that will free the body and mind because the channels become more open and flexible. So just allowing everything to settle. And when thoughts come up pertaining to what we've just been discussing, then you can look into that. Whatever aspect arises in your mind, you can question it. Is it true? Is it not true? How is it true? How does it apply to me? But you can also have periods when you're just resting without particularly looking at anything. You can alternate in a very flexible and relaxed way. So that was only a very short sitting meditation. Excuse me. But even 5-10 minutes when you're fully focused is better than half an hour when you're just wandering about all over the place. The point is to look at your mind and to come see, is this true or is it not true? Is what Rinpoche is saying true or is it not true? Or which bits can you apply to yourself? You don't have to accept a single word, but you might find it useful. What's important is that you accept your mind. You look at your mind. You accept your own situation, because that's what we're working on here. And yes, it's a lot to do, but the alternative is to just keep making the same mistakes and never realizing your potential. Doesn't matter whether you call it Buddhism or whether you call it, doesn't matter. And really, it's not only for Buddhists, But we're very fortunate that we have an excellent example, and in fact many examples, not least Rinpoche himself, which I found, beings like that are extremely inspirational, because it shows you what can be done even in dire circumstances that he had to go through, And I always had the feeling that he saw the best in everybody. He saw the potential in everybody. So that was great for me to sort of observe and also feel in myself, that he saw the potential in me as well. And was always kind. Sometimes he could be wrathful with people if need be, but he was always kind. Yeah. So you see, when you meet people like that, he's having this, the Dalai Lama is having this come up. There's, not just only Buddhists, there's many highly realized beings enough to know that, we have also this potential. So yes, there's lots to do. Certainly in my case, I don't know about you. But yeah, when you see something, it's almost like when you accept something that you've seen in yourself that is not as nice as you would like it to be, you can celebrate. You've noticed something. That means you can drop it. You can drop it. You can change. You don't have to be carrying this mistaken view around. You can just drop it, and then that enough is it changes things. You've dropped an obstacle, a mistaken way of seeing. It's like, you pull a plaster up or something, but it hurts a bit, but then it's off, sort of thing. I think it's something like that. So it's uncomfortable, especially at the beginning, because we want to believe in the Walt Disney version of ourselves. For some reason, we want to be deluded. We want to continue the delusion because we're habituated. So like any habit, it's hard to break, especially at the beginning. But when you do even a little bit to feel the freedom that brings, even just a little bit, then it gives you the impetus and the courage to carry on, So that mental housework, nobody wants to do housework. We want to let it all just get worse. So then you start to get the results. You start to feel better in yourself. You start to feel more natural, more confident in yourself. I don't mean in a big bombastic sort of way, but just comfy in your body, in your own shoes. I think there's obviously some freedom in that, because you're not trying to be somebody that you're not. You're not presenting some sort of view or expectation. Anyway, we've said all this. I'm not going to go through it again, but it's up to you whether you found it useful or not. I hope it was, or it will be when you look into it. Obviously, one session is not not going to fix anything, but it can be a beginning. It can be a step on the road. And the journey to self is discovering of who you truly are, who you genuinely are. So that's the positive, no? I mean, it would not be very positive if you were something lesser than who you thought you were, but you're way more than who you thought you were. So, what's not to like? Okay, so let's dedicate the merit of our practice. By this merit may I obtain omniscience, defeat the enemy wrongdoing, and so free all beings from the ocean of existence, with its stormy waves of birth, aging, sickness, and death. Precious mind of awakening, may it arise in those who are without it, and never fade from those who hold it, but continually grow from strength to strength. May the glorious Lama's lotus feet be firm. May bliss and joy fill the reaches of space, as we gather the accumulations and purify obscurations. May I and all, without exception, be swiftly brought to Buddhahood.